If you've logged into your KDP dashboard lately, you might have noticed a new beta feature, Groundwood paper. What's it about? We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and how it stacks up against cream and white paper and if it's right for you. So let's get into it. So if you've logged into Amazon recently and you're part of the beta, which I'm pretty certain is rolling out to a large chunk of folks, I don't think that this is exclusive. You may have seen the groundwood paper option. Now, the downside is they give you technical specs for the paper, but they don't really tell you much other than it is yellower or not as yellow. Well, thanks. That's super helpful. No pictures, nothing to go by. I went and bought one of their sample books. I'm going to give you my first impression right off the bat. I opened it blind because I just wanted to experience it before I started doing this video. And my first impression was I'm not impressed. Amazon, of course, shipped me a damaged copy. The other thing that I noticed right off the bat is it is definitely lighter than I expected. For a book that's 120 pages, I expected just a little bit more heft to it, which is not bad. But then the other thing was just a quick flip through the page. And I do have to admit, it did take me back to the 80s. Now, I wouldn't call it pulp paper. It's not to that degree, but it's kind of in the middle. So I will give you pictures. There will be more detail, more specs on my website. I'll put the link in. We're going to have to do probably one of the most important tests that we will ever do for a book. We're going to start with white paper. It kind of vaguely smells perfumey, more the perfume in Sears, not Macy's, Sears, but not after it's been sprayed for a while. So there's a little bit of a scent to it, but not, it's not good nor bad. It's just a little bit perfumey. So next up, cream. This is kind of weird. I can't smell anything. Groundwood paper. That's the stuff. I'm not going to say it smells like books of old, partly because the printing process has been refined in how paper is made these days. You're not going to get such a strong, overwhelming, but it does have, it reminds me of a candle trying to be an old book smell. One of the things that I care most about is how the paper is treated after. When books get put together, the signatures all get lined up, and then a giant blade comes down and chops off the edges. This is known as the trim. That is the paper that gets pulled off. Ironically, that is the paper that will then be recycled and turned into ground wood. Now, when we look at the three options, and I'll show close-up detail of these, the white paper is actually the cleanest cut of all of them. This is pretty much to be expected. It is a denser paper, it's a little bit heavier, but we're kind of used to that. We see like a pristine edge on it. So not a big surprise there. The cream paper, this book actually has a very clean cut to it. So when you look at the trim, the signatures mostly line up. They are smooth to the touch across the band going this way and going this way. So this, as far as cream goes, is pretty good. We've all experienced sometimes the signatures don't quite line up. The blade might not have been sharp enough. And we see a little bit of a ripple or a little bit of a, almost like a signature is tipping out of that. That is what we do not want. Groundwood paper, I'm actually shocked when looking down it. Now, granted, this is a Midsummer Night's Dream. It's mass production, and it is most likely being flown off their shelves in lightning speed as people are looking for what's going on here. But I was surprised it's not just the signatures that are uneven. The individual pages do not feel even. So if I run my hand down this way, I can feel the texture of the paper. If I run my hand across it this way, you can see the pages are catching because they stick out. That for me is not necessarily a deal breaker. However, it does create a certain almost rustic look to your book. I'm not I'm not a huge fan of that, but that's not because of the paper. That's because of Amazon's poor trimming job. So the verdict is kind of out on the paper. I would have to see hundreds more books to make a very clear decision on that. So this would definitely be worth get a proof, test it. One of the things that I noticed right away when I opened it was the actual paper texture. If we're looking at a white page, it is perfectly smooth. It's even. The only time you might notice something different is if there's heavy ink on the back facing page. And what happens is it starts to bleed through a little bit. Cream paper, there's a little bit of a rough texture to it, and you can feel it as you drag your fingers across it. This has the same kind of rough texture as cream. However, the visual was very different. It almost feels like a linen style paper. You can see the actual lignin and the fiber in the paper, and it creates kind of a nifty marbling technique. Um, I actually think it makes it look very pleasing on the page. It kind of almost makes it look fancier because we aren't stripping those natural things out. Far as the interior goes, I have to say I rather liked it. But I looked at the paper in two types of light. Natural, my window is about 8 feet away, midday. When I opened it up, the light made it almost inconsequential. Could I tell that I was looking at white paper versus groundwood? Absolutely. But did it change my reading experience? No, I don't think it did at all. From cream to groundwood, I have to say I didn't really notice a color difference when I was using natural light. Now, this kind of changed when I used the warm light of my ring light. It's set on warm, so it's kind of an orangish, yellowish tinge. When I used that very close to the books and think your reader might have a lamp somewhere behind them and they're reading in its warm light, it actually leveled the playing field very quickly. The white paper took on a yellowish tinge from the light. The white paper actually turned, I'm gonna say, almost cream color. The cream color stayed mostly cream color, maybe a little bit more yellow, but it kind of nullified the difference between the three papers. Groundwood felt a little bit closer to cream at that stage, and white paper felt a lot closer to cream. So in natural light, I could tell the difference. Under a yellow light, I really couldn't tell the difference, in the variation between them narrowed. I did not try it in white light because it actually hurts my eyes, and I would never ever read in a white light. Now to the question that everyone is probably asking. What is the reading experience like? So let's break it up into two pieces. Let's talk about the ink itself on the page. Now, you can see I have glasses, I have trifocals with a progressive in, and so what I noticed is on white paper, the lettering is very pristine. There's very little bleed out from the letters. There's a little bit of speckle here and there, but I have to say it is, for the most part, pretty darn clean. It does feel very stark. The contrast is very high. And I do have to say, for me in particular, it would cause eye strain with long term reading. The cream paper, very quickly, what I noticed was it is still fairly clean. Again, very similar speckling like the white paper, but not so much that I thought that cream was any different. I'm going to actually say by the end of this video that cream and white paper are just about identical as far as the print quality, the ink on the paper. So cream came in pretty tight as far as the the control of the ink. Now, when we get to the groundwood, what I noticed was I zoom in incredibly tight to look at the letter. It wasn't actually the bleed of the letters that I was noticing so much. It was the noise of the paper. All of that texture made it harder for me to read, which I know you're thinking instantly makes groundwood less. How many of your readers are putting their nose to the page to read? That is an actual question that you need to ask. Large print might have different needs than regular print. How small is your typeface? This is coming in, and I would say, I'm going to say it's about a 12-point font. Nothing special, very typical of a book. Do I notice uh, imperfections in the ink? Yes, I do. especially when there is a bolded font or a larger font. It's actually the larger font where I notice it. It is not perfectly even black across. It kind of fades in and out. Again, I'm only noticing this because one, I'm a graphic designer, and two, my nose is touching the page, but I did notice it. Now, the other spot where this is going to be important is if you're a person using forced edges, is that little bit of bleed going to make a difference? I'm going to most likely say no. I have not seen it yet, so I might stand corrected when I start getting them in, but I've seen it bleed on white paper. I've seen it bleed on cream paper. I've seen it bleed on many different types across distributors. I don't think Amazon's Groundwood is going to bleed enough to ruin a design. It will soften the edges, but if you've been doing forced edges, you've already noticed there are soft edges. Now for the environmental impact. This is a big thing for me. I did my thesis in college on environmental graphic design in the publishing industry, and this is my love of the printing. Now, I find I'm a little bit skeptical here. So right now, Amazon is saying because we are using groundwood that it's a 5% lower cost. They don't really explain the 5%. They approximate 5%. I'm going to bet that we will not see that 5%. Now, here's the unfortunate thing. Amazon is 100% banking the money that they are saving by using recycled paper. Recycled paper is typically cheaper, especially than bleached white paper. So I know that they are saving money in the back end. And good, they're being more environmentally conscious. They're just not giving us the benefit that they're getting. It does actually use less water, less bleaching, less treatment for paper across the board. It is better for the environment in just about every way. If they're not paying us forward, we can at least walk away with a good feel. They are cleaning 15% fewer carbon emissions. That does kind of check with me. 15% at the scale of Amazon is huge. So that would be awesome if everything tomorrow moved to ground wood. Not everything is going to. So 15% is a lofty ambition. That would be if their entire process went in that direction. And realistically, it's not going to. Textbooks will never move to groundwood. It's just not going to happen. Now, the other thing that they are offering is giving us carbon credits. I don't generate enough carbon to need to buy carbon emissions back. This might be if you were a publisher. So for us, I don't think that that's a big deal. For a larger business, a publishing house, this could be big. And it could be an incentive for them to move in that direction because, I mean, we as the publishing world are not exactly environmentally friendly. The last thing that they're offering is a green banner with a leaf icon on your bookshelf. Why do I care? I mean, honestly, go put it on my product page and then we can talk about it. Until then, I simply do not care. Thanks for letting me look at my own bookshelf and feel good about myself. But I don't think it's going to be a huge benefit to us in our individual businesses. To the industry as a whole, maybe. And that I am actually very hopeful for. This is a step in the right direction. Now, Amazon, push harder. Okay, we're going to talk some extreme technicals. So for those people who want to know the knit and grit, we're going to kind of get into it. If you prefer this in a chart format, you can go check out my website. There's a blog post. It's in the link. It's in the comments, and you can definitely look at it. It's probably going to be easier than me talking about it. So if we're talking about the paper caliper, the actual thickness of the paper, there is a little bit of a surprise here, and I'm actually very shocked, and I'm very happy that I had Reedsy's marketing book because it actually kind of highlighted this even more for me. If we go look at paper, white is 0.0572 millimeters. Okay. But if we go look at groundwood, it's 0.0596. Wait, so groundwood is thicker than white paper. Okay, that was interesting. Did not expect that, to be quite honest. But then what even shocked me more is the caliper on cream is 0.0635. So that actually means white paper, groundwood, and then cream. but there is a variable one in here. If you go to white paper with color ink, which is what the Readsy book is, it's actually the same paper thickness as the Groundwood. The other thing that changed was the max page count, and this is entirely based off Amazon spine thicknesses. You can have more pages than cream, but not as much as white in most cases. There's some variances there. Go look at the chart in detail. Black and white in color is only for white. Black and white is for cream and um, Groundwood. That really is the technical side of it. I will put this in. If you want the absolute, I'll also on the blog post include a link straight to the Amazon page with all these technical details. I find it quite exhausting to go through them. As a designer, I need to know them. As you, as the author, you probably only need to know what the thickness of the maximum page count is per book. So really, I don't think anything's changed. It's just the middle of the road in almost every case. I'm sure some of you just skipped through the video and you're coming straight to the final recommendation. And here's the unfortunate thing. I don't have one for you. I would love to say, as someone who read R.A. Salvatore when I was younger and fell in love with Dritz and I love a good old-fashioned fantasy book. I love old bookstores. I love that very mass market paperback style book. However, this doesn't quite feel like that. It feels like it's slightly an off piece to it. And that I think is kind of important. I don't think it's enough of what my nostalgia wants other than the smell. And I'm not smelling the book all day long. So I don't think it quite conjured that for me. That's not to say I don't think it's a viable option. Am I going to rush out and change over my entire catalog? I wouldn't mind changing it over. And maybe that is the right answer, is that Groundwood doesn't feel like a letdown to me. It doesn't feel like a negative. I would go get a proof or two of my book thinking that I might change over my catalog. So I don't have a definitive answer. I would look to genre. I might look to the history of a genre, see what it has historically been. This might be worth going into a current bookstore, looking at older titles in a bookstore, which they don't typically carry, but you might find them. And then go look at a used bookstore and see what's going on there. It really, unfortunately, it's down to your decision and what you think your readers would most appreciate.